I just want to talk a little bit today about reactive abuse, and I'm going to read from this article I found online that just summarizes it really well. It's from Psychological Abuse 101. Reactive abuse. They call you abusive for reacting to their abuse. A very common aspect of psychological abuse and manipulation is for the abuser to claim that the victim is being abusive towards them. I've written about the abuser's victim complex and gaslighting in this manner before. But right now I want to address the specific scenario in which the victim snaps at the abuser. They endure and they endure. They have been told that there is nothing to react to. They have been told they overreact to everything, so they are afraid to mention their hurt and confusion, and they're afraid to point out the narcissist's lies even, and cannot acknowledge that they are being abused. They endure so much for so long that they snap. They scream at the abuser, insult them, maybe even throw in a low blow or an unfair insult. They may even physically attack, although this is very, very uncommon in victims of abuse, but sometimes they may. The abuser jumps at this reactionary outburst. They claim it as proof that the victim is unstable. They claim it as proof that the victim is the abuser after all. They can hold it up and hold it against the victim for as long as they can and as hard as they can. They are not interested in talking things out. They are not interested in listening and why this outburst has happened. They have their proof, and that's all they ever needed from the victim. They get to say things like, "You're the one who frightened me, and you are an emotional time bomb, and I have to walk on eggshells around you," and have the victim believe it. While the abuser is the actual time bomb, and the victim is frightened and walking on eggshells, but dare not admit it or bring attention to it, or has been so deeply abused, they don't even see it themselves. The abuser turns the roles and paints themselves as the victims. This is so true. This leads the victim to believe that they are in fact the abusive one in the relationship. They now believe they are violent and emotionally unstable, and may start to describe themselves as such and seeking help for these problems, especially if it's not a very self-aware victim. But you know, it can happen to anyone. If they break away from the abuser, they stand no chance at all against the smear campaign the abuser then launches, partially because they believe they were wrong. You know, they believe that, they know that they did the wrong. They feel bad for what they did wrong. The abuser then uses it all against them, launches a smear campaign against them, and convinces a whole bunch of people that this person is actually the opposite of what they are. They kind of flip the person's personality over. This does not mean that the reaction was okay. It is never okay to treat another person with violence, emotional violence or whatever, getting upset. However, it is understandable, and it is very important to differentiate this kind of reaction with the kind of ongoing abuse that causes it. Let me repeat that again. It is very important to differentiate this kind of reaction with the kind of ongoing abuse that causes it. I don't think that it's fair to call reactive abuse abuse, because the word implies a severe violence that causes detriment to the mental and physical well-being of the victim. Reactive abuse almost never actually harms the true abuser it was aimed at. It harms the victim. In fact, it is often exactly what the abuser wanted. The abuser wanted the person to get upset and scream and yell. Okay? And only bolsters their sense of self-righteousness and fuels their power over the victim. This is true. A good way to tell a victim who reacted to abuse in a psychologically abusive person creating a smear campaign against a victim is their attitudes towards their own actions. Victims will almost always be able to admit their own faults. They will know they reacted badly and did wrong. This quality is actually what the abuser uses against them in the first place to make them believe that they are the ones in the wrong. Part of healing from abuse is learning to point out which of the abuser's behavior are in fact abuse, while still acknowledging what you did badly. And everyone reacts badly to things when under the extreme pressure of abuse. Abusers will almost never admit that they have done anything wrong at all. No, they won't. They'll go around saying, "We didn't do anything wrong. We've been faithful. We were the good ones. We were blah, blah, blah," you know. But you know that's not true, okay? Their victims will be blamed for everything. They will hold every tiny thing against the victim, every little thing the victim did. They'll blow it way out, you know. Even things that they could not possibly control, or they have never tried to talk to them about. They use social bigotries against the victim and in their own defense, especially mental illness is used this way. They believe their own illness excuses them from every wrongdoing, and their victim's illness is proof that they are in the wrong. The most dangerous, most intelligent, psychologically abusive people will even try to fake being able to admit their own mistakes, but they almost always get tripped up in the details by claiming, you know, oh, I handled that badly, maybe, but, you know, but only because, you know, they downplay everything so that it becomes the victim's fault, and that's why they're so dangerous. Narcissists and sociopaths are so dangerous in these type of scenarios. And I can tell you for certain that if somebody is screaming and yelling, and that person may not be the person that's actually abusing, that person is, there is a good chance, not always, but there's a good chance that they are reacting to the abuse that's been brought upon them through gaslighting, baiting and bashing, projection, word salad games, circular conversations, projection, shaming, threatening, all of that. They are reacting to the abuse, and they're actually giving the abuser exactly what the abuser wants, so he can hold it then as evidence of the person's mental instability and their abuse towards them, when actually the person who is being abused gave the abuser exactly what they wanted. They gave them exactly what they wanted. They play right into our hand by getting upset and defending themselves or screaming or whatever, ever like that. And then the abuser uses that against the victim and says, look, she's abusing me, when in fact, it didn't affect the abuser at all. He was probably thrilled by it. The person who's being abused is going to be in a fog, going to be really confused, is going to be blaming themselves for everything, will probably be very depressed, losing a lot of weight, gaining a lot of weight. They're going to be in a lot of distress. They're going to be confused about what went on. You know, the person that's being abused is not going to be the calm, cool, confident one. No, they're going to be in an emotional, upset state. So reactive abuse, I don't think it's good. It's obviously not right to ever get upset, screaming at people or doing it whatever else in reaction to their abuse. It's not right, but it's a little bit understandable because that person has been subjected to mind games for so long, been pushed and pushed and pushed by the narcissist or the narcissist family group, and then they snap and they snap. And they're just pushed right over the edge, you know. And so what's so ironic is that the narcissist is probably accusing the person of a whole bunch of stuff that they're not guilty of. But in the end, the victim may play right into their hand because the narcissist has been just messing with them so badly that the person eventually explodes. And then the narcissist will be like, yeah, look, we're right. Yeah, she's, you know, she's nuts or whatever. Or she's this way or that way. Or so that's what reactive abuse is. And I hope that's helped you in understanding a little bit about abuse in general. And so if you're in a situation and you're wondering who the abuser is and who the victim is, most likely both parties have not behaved perfectly. But if you want to know who the true abuser is, it's going to be the one that's not really that affected by you know, any upsetness, you know, as much in terms of, you know, they're going to be, they probably have gotten away with everything, the real abuser, and they're going to hold their heads up very high and act extremely prideful, like they've done nothing wrong. They're going to seem concerned about the person they've victimized and targeted, but they're not concerned at all. Okay, this is most likely your abuser, the one who is calm, cool, collected, that type of person, the person who comes across as if they've got it all together and they know for certain that their victim is this, whoever they've painted them out to be, which is probably a smear on that person. And then the person who's the real victim, you can tell who the real victim is because they're going to be much more broken. They're going to be much more willing to admit true wrong, you know, real admittance of stuff. They're going to be in a fog. They're going to be confused. They may be crying. They may have lost a lot of weight or gained a lot of weight. They may be a little irritated at some points, but that is who your real victim is. That person has been subjected to a lot of head games and psychological abuse and so forth like that. So if you've heard of a situation, you're trying to figure out who was the abuser, who was the abused, the person who is much more broken and much more real and much more in a fog and upset and all this kind of stuff is probably the person who has been abused. Whereas the abuser is going to come across as a hero or a victim and will admit no guilt or none guilt. They're going to come across as if they've done nothing wrong. They're going to be extremely self-righteous and prideful. They may admit a little bit wrong, like I said. That's what makes them so dangerous, a little bit wrong. But they're never really going to admit they're never really going to admit like what they've actually done to the victim or target of their abuse. I hope that's been a little helpful in explaining reactive abuse to you. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.